Hi everyone, welcome to week 5 of Lit 215. This week our theme is society, struggle, conflict, and change. This video is just going to go over our assignments for this week and the readings in a little bit more detail. So first of all, the assignments that you've got for week 5 include reading reflection 5, discussion board 5, and then our reading list assignment is due this coming Sunday. So the reading reflection is the same. Keep in mind, I do want you to talk about all of the readings for each week, not just one or two, so make sure you're doing that. And then with the discussion board this week, instead of creating your own thread, what I'm going to actually do is create a thread for each of the readings, and I want you to reply to 2 of those. So, reflection and discussion board, pretty straightforward. And then the reading list that you've got due this coming Sunday, I did introduce that in the video last week and also on the assignment sheet in our week 4 folder. But I'll also go through an example here just to kind of show you what I'm looking for. So, the readings for this week are another really, actually, I keep saying everything's my favorite, but the readings for this week are good too. So there are 2 readings from the Hear My Voice anthology, Tony's Story and Concentration Constellation. So the theme this week, like I said, is struggle, conflict, and change. So what I wanted to do was kind of pull out some themes of issues that I want you to be kind of looking for. In Tony's Story, this is a fictional piece about a man on an Indian reservation who encounters a local police officer that doesn't like him, to say the least. So this piece discusses police brutality, reservation life, and also alcoholism in Native American communities. So while you read through this piece, I want you to think about what Leslie Marmon Silko is trying to say about these issues and kind of what her perspective is on how the U.S. treats Native American communities. Then you're going to move on to Concentration Constellation. So this is a poem related to Japanese internment, and it really kind of reflects on the way that we as Americans like to move on quickly from bad things that happen and bad things that we are responsible for. So while you read this one, think about the tone that Inada uses in describing Japanese internment and why that tone is persuasive. Then we've got 2 longer pieces, both by African American authors. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates describes racism, police brutality, and this idea that the American dream doesn't exist, particularly for Black Americans. It's a very, very powerful text. I'm only asking that you read pages 1 through 12, but if you like it, you can read the whole thing. It's definitely an incredible piece. And then finally, we're going to get to Recitatif by Toni Morrison. Recitatif is actually a French word for recitative. It's a style of story that focuses on dialogue and interaction orally between characters, which is absolutely what this story focuses on. The themes in Recitatif, this is really just a few of them. There's a lot covered in Morrison's piece, but definitely sickness and disability, racism and prejudice, racial identity, and ideas of community. She also touches on family struggles, the difficulties of changing friendships, discusses a lot of social and events that kind of impact the perceptions we have of groups of people. What's interesting about Recitatif is that the story is written about the relationship between 2 girls who meet in an orphanage. One is Black and the other is white. But throughout the story, Morrison does not tell you which is which. So this is really interesting because there are going to be points while you're reading where you're like, oh, I know which one is which. And then it's going to shift and you're going to be like, wait a second, I don't think I'm right. And I think it really, really touches on these ideas we have about what it means to be Black, what it means to be white, and then also how those 2 cultures have historically interacted. There's a lot in the story also about change and how these perceptions develop as we age and as our experiences change. So some very, very cool stuff happening. As you're kind of reading through these stories on struggle, conflict, and change, I want you to think about what specific struggles and conflicts do multicultural groups encounter in the U.S. and why is that? How do these authors write about and analyze societal issues? What kind of tone are they using? What experiences are they choosing to focus on? And then consider the events and issues that impact these struggles. I think understanding the historical context of each story is very important, especially this week. So if one of the stories mentions an event or a reference that you don't know, look it up. That's how you start to make those connections. And then I think what we can also discuss this week is kind of historically speaking, how have these groups been represented, and how does that representation change over time? It's still changing. It will continue to change. But this week, I really want us to kind of reflect on, historically speaking, how have certain cultural groups been treated in the U.S. I didn't include any readings this week by Latino authors, but there is one that I wanted to mention. It's called Los Vendidos, and it's a very interesting piece. I'll probably actually link it as just another perspective if you're interested. It's a really great piece about the stereotypes we have of Latinx people, and I think it would fit very well here, but I didn't want to overwhelm the readings. I really struggled choosing which ones to look at, so anyway, once you are done with the readings this week, the reflection and the discussion board, then you want to kind of revisit your reading list. So I did mention this last week, but I want you guys to include at least 5 readings. 3 of them should be pieces of literature and 1 should be a novel. It can be a mix. You can have academic articles, you can have a news article if that's relevant, but the majority should be pieces of literature. There is an example of a reading list on Blackboard that I'm going to pull up actually. All right, so this is a reading list example from one of my previous students. So what they do is they give their driving question first. So they were looking at Native Americans in literature, and then you'll notice that they have a MLA citation of one of the readings. This was from a previous anthology I used to use that is unfortunately not available anymore. And then they have kind of a summary here. They describe what this talks about, and then they sort of add their perspective. She says, I believe what this author means is that because of the controversial past between the Americans and Indians, people are unsure about what the relationship is between them. And then she does this same thing for each of her 5 readings. So what you want to make sure that you have is, first of all, your driving question, then a MLA citation, and then a summary and evaluation of that reading. So you want to do that for all 5 of your readings. And this example is posted on Blackboard. So other resources I've got available for y'all this week. There is a folder labeled MLA format and citing sources. There's a citation builder linked here. Some great videos, very short, about MLA format if you need a refresher, a style guide, how to cite a source. There's a sample paper here. So if you're confused about any of that or need kind of a refresher, those are there for you. And then the example I mentioned is right here. So what I would like y'all to do is to compile those and have that submitted by Sunday. I wanted to also give you the citation for our anthology specifically. I'll post this to our announcements as well. So when you're citing an anthology, so if you're choosing any of your readings from Hear My Voice, which I do encourage, what you'll want to do is use the author's first and last name of the piece, that piece's title, then the anthology name, edited by Laurie King, Addison Wesley is the publisher, 1994 is the year, and then change the page number for whatever piece you're citing. If you're using a piece that you found online, make sure you cite it from where you found it. If you're citing a novel that you got from the library, make sure you cite that correctly as well. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out, but I'm excited to see how these projects keep going for you.